The world of TikTok theatre kids was brought to its knees in the early 2020s due to the actions of an Elphaba impersonator that, in many people's eyes, went much too far. What this Elphaba impersonator did was deemed not just as attention-seeking on a personal level, but on a larger level was also an active mockery of some of the most vulnerable members of society. So to the non-theatre kids in my audience, you might be wondering to yourself right now, what is an Elphaba? Well, to answer that question, we have to head back to the 15th of May, 1856, because that was when L. Frank Baum was born. This man is perhaps best known for writing The Wizard of Oz. Flash forward to 1995 and Gregory Maguire writes Wicked, an expansion of the Wizard of Oz universe. Stephen Schwartz adapts it onto stage in 2003, and it is then forevermore a part of popular musical theatre. In Wicked, Elphaba is the real name of the Wicked Witch of the West. So Elphaba Orion Doherty, the TikToker that we're about to talk about, would make content cosplaying as Elphaba from Wicked. She then started making some money on TikTok, particularly on her TikTok lives. Many people saw Elphaba pop up while scrolling on their TikTok lives, and they were greeted to see a gender-transitioning, green-painted theatre kid with scabies, a condition where mites burrow under your skin, and so they began laughing at her. Perhaps unfairly, considering that she initially hadn't done anything wrong, but their viewership was financially lucrative. The more crash outs, the weirder and more clippable she became, the more views and money she would get. And it's very possible that Elphaba Orion Doherty would soon catch on to this, and then would make a series of questionable choices that set her up for disaster. TikTok lives reward unbelievable behaviour. They're almost like this weird, messed up human petting zoo. And what Elphaba Orion Doherty would do next was, to say the very least, unbelievable. Her physical appearance aside, Elphaba Orion Doherty would begin to go down a dark path that would lead her to becoming a laughingstock of the internet. And it all started with a self-diagnosis for autism. Doherty claimed that she was autistic, so she decided to pair up with another autistic person and joined Autism's Got Talent 2022. For reference, it's kind of like Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent, but just for people with autism. Upon receiving relatively little backlash to this self-diagnosis, it seems like Elphaba just ran with it. But then she went further. She decided to go down the same route as the now infamous Ticks and Roses, who I spoke about in a very similar video to this last year. Essentially, she decided to fake having Tourettes within her TikTok content.
Oh.
Just so we're all absolutely on the same page here, Tourette's is a syndrome that makes you tick. You might have seen it before where people have uncontrollable actions for a moment or two. A lot of the time it can just be physical, people might turn their head or something, other times it can be swearing tics. But in the case of Elphaba, they were quite clearly fake. Tourette's is probably one of the hardest inflictions to fake, and in Elphaba's case, her Tourette's clearly looked put on. And this would all but be confirmed a short while after, when messages from Elphaba's Discord leaked where she was saying that she had to stop lying and that she wasn't trying to mock people. The rumours were then fully confirmed as Elphaba admitted to lying about having Tourette's live on camera.
It was wrong of me to say I had Tourette's. That was wrong. I'm very sorry for that because, you know, I tend to say things without thinking, and that is the thing I need to stop.
In another instance, where she spoke directly to the camera, she confirmed that she did not officially have autism. She diagnosed herself with it. That said, she did say that she truly believed that she did have it.
I lied about being diagnosed with autism, correct? And that's damaging. But I'm taking an effort into being diagnosed for it. I think it's f***ing clear I'm autistic.
Various content creators that suffer from Tourette's will come out of the woodwork to give their thoughts on Elphaba's actions, and it should come as no surprise that many of them were absolutely livid with her. This was one cosplay that she couldn't pull off. That cannot make it into the final draft of this. Elphaba has since culled all of her content on TikTok between September 2022 and May 2025. When I checked, her comment section was limited, and even the suggested search on her content is now betraying her. I looked her up and it showed Elphaba Orion Doherty fake seizure. But despite her controversies, many people still watch her content. I can't imagine that many people support Elphaba by now. I think they're just doing it to laugh at her. She's essentially now been relegated to lolcow status. It's going to be quite difficult for Elphaba to book any acting gigs anytime soon after this incident. That is for certain. Now, Elphaba stole the identity of a person with Tourette's, and in the real world, you'd be surprised just how easy it is to have your information and identity stolen. Well, that's where Aura comes in, the sponsor of today's video. If you're like me, you probably get scam calls several times a week. My data has very likely been sold off by a data broker. And us YouTubers, you know us, we are such hard workers. We work our fingers to the bone. I have no time in my day to go on some sort of crazy cyber chase. Fortunately for me, Aura will do that for me. The service chases down brokers that are making billions off selling your data and removes your personal information from their databases. Aura is a one-stop shop digital security service that has several features such as antivirus, password manager, account breach monitoring, ad blocker, up to $5 million worth of identity theft insurance, and so much more. They take care of the hard parts, automatically removing your info from these sites and then keeping it off. As the online world becomes more and more of an essential part of each of our daily lives, online safety only becomes more important. So if online safety sounds good to you, then make sure to try Aura for 14 days absolutely free of charge at www.aura.com/foxakimbo by clicking the link in the description below, or by scanning the QR code on the screen now. That's www.aura.com/foxakimbo for 14 days of Aura free of charge. Thank you very much to Aura for being the sponsor of today's video. So that said, moving on, I think that we should carry on this video with someone that you might have heard of before we get into the more nitty-gritty niche cases later on. Please allow my editor and good friend Jack to hit you up with a stupendously edited news clip sequence that will set us up fantastically for the person we're about to talk about next.
One of the most powerful men in Hollywood, now Oscar-winning producer Harvey Weinstein, is facing serious allegations of sexual harassment.
And there's breaking news tonight in the case of movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. Just a short time ago, the directors of his company officially let him go, firing him. It comes after that bombshell report about alleged sexual harassment.
Harvey Weinstein, at one time one of the biggest names in the movie business, surrendering to police on sex crime charges.
It's time for Harvey Weinstein. In a video about scumbags that faked their conditions, Harvey Weinstein might just be the biggest scumbag of them all. And considering the people that we're going to talk about today, that's saying something. Now, I'm sure that about 98% of you watching this will know who Mr. Weinstein is. But in case you don't, he was a mogul movie producer, having co-founded Miramax with his brother Bob. He was one of the most influential names in Hollywood. He was able to sway the Academy in Oscar races. He was able to bring big franchises to life with the snap of his fingers. He was able to allow any actor he wanted to live their dreams, to shoot them into stardom and make them a household name. But everything has its price, especially in Hollywood. As it turns out, he was giving boosts and career opportunities to actresses in exchange for sexual favors. These favors were an open secret amongst Hollywood elites, yet his disturbing machinations lay undetected for years. That was until the autumn of 2017, when actresses such as Ashley Judd and Rose McGowan came out to reveal the ugly truth. And from there, more actresses came out to reveal their stories. He went from mogul to monster within 48 hours, and his public perception was by this point the least of his concerns, as Mr. Weinstein soon saw severe legal cases brought against his name. And these came with an unsuspected problem for him. A problem that, before I tell you what it was, I must clarify, this is alleged. This is not confirmed, but it is highly suspected by media outlets and general onlookers. The problem was that Mr. Weinstein was one of the most powerful men in the entirety of Hollywood. Both the defense and the prosecution knew this, and his image would be very tough to get away from. His crimes occurred because he had all of this unchecked power that he wielded for evil. He was a god amongst men. So for his best chance at freedom, his defense needed a way to bring him down to a human level. He came out for his trials on one of those old man Zimmer frames, doing his best impression of Carl from Up, even going as far as having tennis balls on the bottom. Now, there was a possibility that he had mobility issues now, but the vast majority of people that saw these images as they came out believed that he was faking it.
He's faking.
To most people, this came across as a desperate plea for sympathy. He came across as this old man that he couldn't even get it up anymore. You know, he wouldn't dare touch these women. It was all a lie. Long story short, It didn't work. Harvey Weinstein will very likely be seeing the rest of his days behind bars. But given that the vast majority of people and media outlets believe that this was a ruse, it was the perfect addition to this video. And let's stick with the entertainment industry for our next case. From the big screen to the small screen, we're heading to the back rooms of one of television's most popular shows to discuss the story of Elisabeth R. Finch. This is Ms. Elisabeth Finch, and if you've ever seen either Grey's Anatomy or True Blood, you would have seen her work, even though you didn't know it, as she wrote for those shows. In fact, she worked on 172 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, which aired between 2014 and 2021. Her name was thrust into the limelight in 2022, however, after a shocking revelation. People claim that Elisabeth often came into work looking worse for wear. This was likely on account of her medical issues, which she had plenty of. She had lost a kidney, she was undergoing knee replacement surgery, she had an abortion while she was receiving chemotherapy for a rare bone cancer called chondrosarcoma. It was an absolute miracle that she was able to soldier on and work given her conditions. Everyone in her life knew about her medical issues, including her wife, Jessica Beale. But over time, Mrs. Beale noticed some small inconsistencies in Finch's stories. She would eventually confront her, which was when she learned the damning truth. Elisabeth Finch's stories were entirely fabricated. The kidney, fake. The knee replacement surgery, fake. The abortion whilst having cancer, fake and fake. Even non-medical issues such as her brother abusing her as a child, fake. The fact that her brother ended it all, fake. The fact that her friend was killed in the Tree of Life shooting, fake. Finch was a serial liar, and she even shaved her own hair off to keep this ruse. A ruse that would very shortly come crumbling down upon her. After her wife told people that she was lying, she eventually admitted to the masses that what she did was wrong. It was a falsehood. It was manipulative. And for the deception, she was placed on administrative leave. Ever since this, a Peacock documentary called Anatomy of Lies was created. And in January of 2025, Ms. Finch came under fire yet again after making a link to her Venmo after the California wildfires. She alleged that she was a victim of the wildfires, but who's to say at this point? A problem that she'll have, likely for the rest of her life, is once you're exposed as a serial liar, it's very hard to get people to trust you again. She'll be at the very back of the queue to receive any form of public support or donations when something like this happens. But I personally would love to be at the front of the queue for your support. If you haven't already, then I'd love to ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You'd be helping out a small independent content creator, and I would appreciate it very much. Also, let me know down in the comments section if you know of any other cases where people were exposed for lies of this nature. With that said, let's get back onto things. Moving on, we're sticking to a similar, but perhaps even more extreme story for our next tale. When it comes to these sorts of people, sometimes you have to take a step back and almost admire the lengths that they will go to in order to sell their ruse. And in the case of Ashley Kirilow, I'm in two minds. In one, I'm almost impressed that she went as far as she did. In the other, I'm utterly disgusted that she went as far as she did. When you look at the following image, what do you see? To the naked eye, this is a woman that is clearly on chemotherapy. She has no eyebrows. But to those blessed with hindsight, they would know that this is a perfectly healthy woman who's merely pretending to be a cancer patient. Born in 1987, this Canadian woman's life changed in the late 2000s after she discovered a lump on her breast. Ashley Kirilow would have been roughly 23 at the time. She went to get it checked out, and the lump was removed successfully. For 99% of people, that would have been the end of things. But for some unknown reason, Kirilow decided to start telling people that the lump was cancerous and that the cancer began spreading. The heartbroken and charitable began sending donations her way, supporting her not only emotionally, but also financially. She made several posts about her cancer on her MySpace page, in one instance stating, "I have been battling several types of cancer for over a year now. Every day is a challenge, and I have to fight for my life." It was good that people were supporting her because, according to Kirilow, her parents were out of the picture. She told some people that they were drug addicts and that they disowned her, whereas to other people she said that they were both deceased and she was now an orphan. This couldn't be further from the truth, however. Her parents were both still alive, and in fact, they were the ones that exposed her scam. They told everyone, yeah, we're alive and our daughter has been lying to you the entire time. Many of the people that supported her had recently lost their own loved ones to cancer, and so to learn that this young woman had been lying to them the entire time broke their hearts once more. These people's sadness quickly turned into rage and anger, and they promptly told the police to launch an investigation into her because she had very obviously committed fraud. In November 2010, Kirilow pled guilty to defrauding more than $7,000 out of a woman named Donna Michalowski who had raised the money for her. An article written by CTV News claimed that in total she had received about $20,000 worth in donations. Miss Kirilow would not see any time behind bars though. She was instead given a conditional sentence as well as 10 months of house arrest followed by 5 months of curfew, and was forced to complete 100 hours of community service. She was also not ordered to pay the money back because after her arrest she was kept in a psychiatric ward and she had no job, so I guess the police just wanted to make sure that she was able to sustain herself once she was out of it. She was diagnosed with several conditions such as anxiety, depression, and a personality disorder, and most people also believe that she had Munchausen syndrome, which is this, I guess, it's a condition where you are almost prompted to lie by your brain. To get the NHS definition, Munchausen syndrome is a psychological condition where someone pretends to be ill or deliberately produces symptoms of illness in themselves. This is one of the most extreme cases of someone trying to weaponize sympathy, as Miss Kirilow went from this to this. She lost weight, she plucked her eyebrows out, and shaved her head. This was almost an indescribable turn of events. Now, in the modern day, we're often told to always believe victims, especially in the wake of the Me Too movement. Oftentimes, when people come out to say that they've been harassed or assaulted, people will jump to their aid, no questions asked, because they know that getting hard evidence for this kind of stuff can be very difficult. And while their blind loyalty is admirable, it can also be naive, because humans cannot always be trusted. Some people out there will lie about the worst offences if it aligns with their goals. And Jemma Beale, a woman from West London who is now in her mid-30s, is one of these people. Back in 2017, when she would have been 25 years old, news reports broke of her making a long series of false rape allegations. Let me make something crystal clear. A rape allegation is one of, if not the most serious claim you could possibly make. These have the ability to permanently change lives. And according to reports, Jemma Beale between the late 2000s and early 2010s did not take the severity of these allegations to heart. When news of her situation broke, it stated that she claimed that she had been essayed by 6 men and raped by 9 in 4 different occasions over 3 years. Now, you know that because she's in this video, she was lying. I'm not going to dance around it. Provided the courts were correct in their assessment, she was making it up. These sorts of allegations, if false, would severely negatively impact the mental health of the accused. How could you possibly trust someone again, especially a partner in an intimate setting, if you've been accused of this kind of thing and you know for a fact that the accusations are false? Not only that, but it also severely negatively impacts actual victims of these sorts of crimes. It causes people to be wary of victims. It makes them question whether or not they're telling the truth, because of situations like these. And in fact, it negatively impacts literally every single tax-paying citizen in the country. It was reported that police spent a total of 6,400 hours investigating Jemma Beale's case, causing the taxpayer £250,000. That is equivalent to just shy of $350,000. In one case, dated back to 2010, her allegations led to the imprisonment of a man named Mahad Qasim for 7 years. He would serve 5 of those 7 years and was released in 2015 after doubts over Beale's case began to arise. In another instance, The Guardian stated that it's thought that Beale injured herself to back up the claims that she had been assaulted with barbed wire back in 2012. The judge in the case called her a very, very convincing liar who enjoyed seeing herself to be the victim. Jemma would remain adamant that she was not guilty, and someone who I believe to be her father created a YouTube channel that attempted to clear her name. But in the eyes of the court, Jemma Beale was guilty. In August 2017, it was reported by major news outlets that Jemma Beale would be jailed for 10 years for her attempts to pervert the courts of justice. Some have since questioned why Beale would do this. It could just be another case of Munchausen syndrome where she's compulsed to lie, which is not an excuse by the way, but it could be a reason. Others, however, believe that she did it for compensation. The BBC reported that she was awarded £11,000 by the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority. If this is true, I think it's even worse. Imagine sending an innocent man to prison for £11,000. That is equivalent to $15,000, by the way. In 2019, Beale would appeal her conviction, but it was rejected by 3 judges at the Court of Appeal. 6 years on from that, Beale is now about 8 years into her sentence. She's expected to be released in 2027. But now known as a person who would make false allegations, life is going to be extremely difficult for her once she gets out of prison. And on the topic of people it's tough to trust due to them crying wolf, I discussed several more in my video last summer about YouTubers that faked their illness. This was probably one of the best videos I've ever made, so if you haven't seen it already, I'd highly recommend you checking it out. If you've already seen that one though, then why not watch my video on YouTubers that fake their identities by pretending to be human when they were actually AI powered. Definitely give it a look, it's one of the best videos I've made this year. Aside from that, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.